It was a Chelsea morning, and the first thing that I heard was a song outside my window, and the traffic wrote the words. It came a-ringing up like Christmas bells, and wrapping up like pipes and drums. Oh, won't you stay? We'll put on the day, and we'll wear it till the night comes. Woke up, it was a Chelsea morning, and the first thing that I saw was the sun through yellow curtains and a rainbow on the wall. The red, green, and gold to welcome you, crimson crystal beads to beckon. Oh, won't you stay? We'll put on a day. There's a sun show every second. Now the curtain opens on a portrait of today, and the streets are paved with passers-by, and pigeons fly, and papers lie, waiting to blow away.
These are yours?
Yeah, they're mine.
Oh, Tom, how could you?
Like all too many of his contemporaries, Tom is experimenting with something he knows little about which too little is known by anyone. Marijuana. It's a scene which must have times, in countless ways, all equally heartbreaking. The father-son confrontation.
Mom smokes like a chimney. And you have a drink every day and smoke too.
It's not the same.
Why not? It's easy for you to stand there with a cigarette in one hand and a drink in another and tell us not to blow pot.
Have you really considered all the consequences?
There's not a shred of evidence that marijuana is any worse than nicotine or alcohol. You can get cancer. Your liver can rot away.
Well, you're right. You rather look down on my generation for getting hung up on smoking and drinking, knowing it's bad for us. You think we're stupid. Maybe you're right. But does that make your generation so all-fired smart for getting hung up on grass? You can be harmed by that, too. Or do you have double standards when it comes to our smoking and drinking and your blowing pot?
Pot isn't bad for you.
Oh, isn't it? How do you know?
Studies concerning marijuana's possibly harmful effects have been made, although they're not yet conclusive. Tom seeks the help of his friend, Mac, a couple of years his senior, the boy who first introduced him to pot. Mac thinks Tom's project is real square, but he agrees to get him all the dope. No pun intended. He knows just where to start Tom's education.
There's nothing wrong with smoking marijuana. It's no worse than taking a drink.
A 20-year study of marijuana smokers in Greece showed a fine personality change and permanent brain deterioration.
There are still too many unanswered questions about the effects of smoking marijuana. Exhaustive tests are being made. Let's wait and see. One afternoon, Tom again has a talk with his father. He's looked at both the pros and cons of blowing pot. He's not convinced that grass is all that harmful, but there is room for a lot of doubt. Why don't we wait and see? There's a lot of testing to be done before we'll know all the facts. We've already got our hang-ups with smoking and drinking. We know the consequences we face doing it. Why add another hang-up by blowing pot? Especially since the full consequences of that are not known. Tom has decided what he'll do. It would be stupid to take a chance. After all, he's no psychological cripple, unable to cope. Who needs a grass crutch? Much better to keep off the grass.
These are high bush cranberries. Sorry.
Sound number 5.
These are high bush cranberries. No good.
Sound 15.
These are wild Oh, for gosh sake.
Many of the commercials you see on television begin life here on the island of Manhattan, the creative product of thousands of people at the more than 200 advertising agencies head in New York City. We're going to visit one of those agencies whose offices are on the top 8 floors of this building for a behind-the-scenes look at how an advertising agency's copywriters, art directors, and producers make a television commercial.
Self-explanatory. I think that's a pretty strong opening there. If we were... Hi, Kenny.
Well, I have you all together. I have a new creative work requisition out on Grape Nuts.
What kind of a due date do we have on this, Kenny?
We have 10 working days.
I think that's a fair amount of time.
I think so.
Yeah. The strategy attached
Right,
here?
sure is.
Right.
I'll keep in touch.
Right, Kenny. Oh, this is the strategy that the account team briefed us on just recently. It's a new one, and I think it gives us a chance to do something that's really fresh and original in the serial category.
Once they have the idea, the art director and assistant lay out a storyboard.
How do you see it? How about if we have them up in the mountains? Yeah. Sort of a Western type of setting. A few trees standing here in the foreground.
I call Grape Nuts my Back to Nature cereal. And of course we...
Next hurdle, selling the idea to B&B's top creative man.
Do you think that a lot of people will know who Ewell Gibbons is?
We think that a lot of people will. He's written several books and sold over 500,000 copies. This is one of them, Stalking the Good Life, and he's appeared on talk shows and written articles for national publications.
After the creative okay, the account group is taken through the storyboard, frame by frame, and they put their stamp of approval on it. Next, the client presentation. Account and creative show the commercial for the first time to the Post-Grape Nuts brand manager.
I like the idea. Do we, or have we talked with Gibbons yet? Do we know if he can be available?
Yes, casting has looked into that, and I think we're in pretty good shape.
The manager of production and the producer prepare the budget.
Okay, Paul, we figured it 2 ways. One for Michigan and one for Colorado.
Right.
If you don't have this in Michigan, it'll cost you a few bucks more in Colorado. All right?
Okay.
George Gage Productions is low bidder and gets the job. And in the pre-production meeting, Director George Gage tells how he sees the commercial.
White snow out, barren trees, and everything else. You'll know that he's right out there in the environment.
2,100 miles west of New York in the high snow country of Colorado, where the 15-man film crew has moved in for a 2-day shoot.
These are wild highbush cut.
Down 7.
The director finally thinks he's got it after 4 hours and 22 different takes.
I'm your Gibbons. I'm gathering part of my breakfast. These are highbush cranberries.
Good. Hey.
As an author of 5 books...
Back in New York, with 3,000 feet of exposed film, the creative team and the film editor go to work over the moviola. This is really where a commercial happens. Selecting and splicing together exactly the right scenes. Boiling 30 minutes of film down to 30 seconds.
Much better.
After a week of editing,
Roll it, Ollie.
the moment everybody's been waiting for, the rough interlock.
I'm your Gibbons.
The creative group gathers in the darkened screening room for a first look at the commercial in its proper sequence. This is the moment of truth in the making of a commercial.
I call grape nuts my back to nature cereal.
You know, I think that really works out fine, you know. He comes off very nicely.
There's one thing. Do you have another take, a closer shot on the opening of the bush itself, the cranberry bush? Because I'm so intrigued by the thing that I want to see more of it. You know, it's very interesting to me.
After a little re-editing, the commercial is approved by the client and goes to the optical lab for an answer print. Finally, an idea that began life in an art director's office more than 2 months before is transformed by a small army of specialists and a long chain of events into a television commercial.
Cranberry.
Charlie and I were out the back when Vera and Dave came by and said, "Come along for a picnic." And I was going, but Charlie said, he says I better tell Mum where I'm going. So we told him to wait while we went and asked. But Mum was talking to the milkman. And she talked such a long time that when I had asked her and she'd said yes, the others had gone. Mum asked us why we hadn't gone, and when I told her, she said we'd been good for not going, and would we like a day out with her instead? Charlie says, always tell your mummy before you go off somewhere so she knows who you are with.
Painting is another way of expressing our ideas and feelings about the world. There's an endless number of subjects to choose from, and no one way to paint. Every person must find his own way. I am a painter, and this is how I paint. An artist's work is, in a sense, his autobiography. Each of the paintings I have done grew out of my experience, mood, and thinking at some time in the past, just as my next painting will come out of what I feel, see, and think now. I am continually studying the world around me and my relationship to it. I observe things, trying to understand what they really look like, learning how they function. For some time now, I've been studying birds and how they behave, their shapes, colors, textures, and movements. Observing the birds is not enough. I have to gather as much information as I can. Exploring the bird's natural environment helps me to understand my subject better. The natural objects I collect reveal the geometry of nature, its colors and textures.